I never developed my curveball hitting skills. I mostly swung at fastballs and sat on pitches even as a college baseball player. The way the seams spin indicates the difference. I had a decent reputation for hitting fastballs. That marked the end of my career goals. However, I received a top-notch education. This was very helpful to me because I would have likely been deflated after playing for a few years. A quality education is always beneficial. For me, it most definitely did. I got my dream job 15 years after working in my major and 25 years after graduating. In addition to leading one of NIST's manufacturing labs, I was a full-time professor in the engineering department of a large university in Texas, holding an emeritus chair and providing consulting services on significant government construction projects. After Tessa and I purchased our opulent home in the gated community of our dreams, life began tossing curveballs my way. I was striking them consecutively. Our eldest daughter, Tori, was a junior in high school, studying civil engineering like her father and attending the same school where I was a teacher. Life felt like a vice, with constant blackouts. Then the curveball showed up. At first, I didn't realize it. The fact that the ball was in play escaped my notice. It arrived as a phone call from Tor. She said, "Daddy, what's going on?" "Oh, nothing much," I responded, "just sitting on the internet." "What's wrong with you, Dove?" "I stopped by the house to borrow your jack," she stated. There was a delivery truck there. I walked in, and Mom was there supervising the movers. She said she was moving out, that you two were having problems and needed to be apart. "Why didn't you say anything?" I was in disbelief. "Haha, good for you, Tori," I muttered at last. Her words, "Daddy, this isn't a joke, what's going on?" I said, "Jesus, I have no idea." "Are you sure, baby? This isn't a joke?" "Daddy, I'm right here watching. You need to come over here." That was one hell of a question. I don't know what's going on, and Mommy won't tell me. "Did you do something?" I was sure I'd done a lot of things, but I couldn't think of anything that would make Tessa disappear. I knew I was not a perfect husband. I was far from flawless. She wasn't an ideal wife, though. Nobody is flawless. I never was a cheater, I promise. I wasn't a transgressor. I hadn't put on 300 pounds. Furthermore, I didn't think I had an offensive body odor. I was driving fast all the way home and had made arrangements for help to teach my classes. As promised by Tori, the truck was parked in the driveway. We crossed paths in the street. She said, "She won't tell me anything." "You really don't guess anything?" "No, honey, I don't guess. She hasn't said a word to me about any trouble." "Well, Dad, if you haven't cheated on her or insulted her or talked trash, I've got your back, okay? I promise I haven't done anything even remotely similar," I assured her. I exhaled. "Let's go see if she wants to talk." "Are you sure you want to be here?" "Naturally," she replied. "Dad, I'm going to record this on my phone. Talitha will want to know what happened." I gave Tori a quick hug and said, Tia was her little sister and our baby. Then, we went to go get the lion. In the living room, Tessa was supervising the movers as they loaded the grotesque living room set that she simply could not live without. I said, "Tessa, what are you doing?" "Mark, I'm leaving you," she declared. "I don't want to argue with you about this. You won't change my mind. You'll only make me angry, and I'll get nowhere." "Well, Mom, that was a good speech," Tori remarked. "I hate to tell you, but I'm already mad." "No, I guess I don't hate to tell you this, unless you want to piss me off completely. I suggest you try to make us both realize what the hell you're letting yourself get away with." Oh my God, she was mad. Although Tori was the most adorable girl on the planet, I had discovered over the years that she could get very angry easily if she felt that she had been wronged. She was not a big swearer. Tessa was obviously thinking the same thing. She took Tori's hand and gave the movers some instructions. "Mark, go ahead," she urged. Even though Tori pulled her hand away, We trailed Tessa out onto the deck. After shutting the sliding door, she appeared to collect her thoughts. The words, "I met someone," came out of her finally. "You don't know him. He moved here from New Mexico about 6 months ago and is in real estate. I'm going to be with him. I can't just cheat, so I'm leaving. I've already filed divorce papers, Mark." I remarked, "Now that's surprising. You couldn't just cheat, could you? So, you met, like it was yesterday, fell in love at first sight, and knew right away you were meant for each other, right?" Tori gave a snort. "That's right, that's the way it always works, Mom. How stupid do you think we are?" "I don't think," she interrupted Tor. "You're a real estate agent, Mom. You don't have to account for your time. How many lame dates, dinners, showings have you had with Romeo?" "It's not," I spoke first. "Yes, it is. You can't just randomly decide you're leaving your husband and going out with your soulmate. How did you know you were destined?" "All right, you get your way," she said. "You can make something cheap out of it if you want." "You don't have to make anything," said Tori. "It's cheap as it is. I realize you're stabbing Daddy in the back, and that's between you and him. But how do you envision it with me or with Tia, for that matter?" "That won't change, darling. I love you both," Tessa quickly reassured her. "I still love you, Mark." "It's just she couldn't finish, so you claim to have feelings for me," Tori replied. "And how do you think I'm going to feel about you? How do you think Talitha will feel about me?" "I know you're upset," Tessa said. "You're going to have to accept that nothing in our relationship is going to change, Tori. You're going to love Charles once you get to know him better." "I'm not going to spend time getting to know him," Tori growled. "I don't want anything to do with some jerk who hit on a married woman. I'm going to tell Talitha about it too. Something has already changed in our relationship. All my respect for you is gone. I'll see you very rarely. If you ever bring that piece of expletive to me, I'll spit on him, Tori." "I know you don't know." Tori growled, "I've never been so disappointed in someone in my life. You've ruined everything." "God, I hate you, Mom." Tessa looked helplessly at me. "Mark, don't look at me," I told her, "it's on your conscience." As she shifted her gaze from one of us to the other, I believe the full weight of what she'd done started to sink in. Tori grabbed hold of my arm. "Let's go, Daddy. I don't want to be around Skankenstein." "Let's go get Talitha," Tessa cried in horror at the unfair reputation her daughter had given her, but my very irate daughter was leading me up the deck steps already. She practically hauled me over to her car, got me settled in, and even opened the door. I experienced a sense of slow motion. Tori got in the car, started it, and looked at me. "Talk about a shock. I must have been an ignorant idiot," she said. "Daddy, it's going to be okay," she added. "I know you're floundering here, but for the foreseeable future, I'm going to make it my mission in life to make sure the person I love most in the world gets through this and is happy. Now buckle up, it's the law." I felt good about buckling up. She added a bit of venom to Tori, who had always driven like a bat out of the underworld. We asked her what kind of graduation gift she would like to receive after she earned her bachelor's degree. She had her sights set on a car, a 2017 Audi R8 V10 Plus Spider, to be exact. She deserved it, and we could afford it. We were really proud of her since she put a lot of effort into her studies, placed second in her class, and got accepted to graduate school. When I was traveling with her, I always tried to hang on to as much as possible. I cried out, "Jesus, baby, you're going to kill me." She laughed as she always did, adding, "And you won't have to worry about this foreseeable future thing," without lowering her gait. I know it didn't take us 10 minutes to get to the apartment she shared with Da, which was about 10 miles away. The girls were complete opposites in terms of personality rather than appearance. In that regard, they were practically twins. The disparity between two children raised in the same home by the same parents has always amazed me. Tori was vivacious, alert, talkative, and positively brimming with life. Talitha was a quiet, devoted, and incredibly affectionate person. Her athletic endeavors were the only area in which you could see Tori's energy. She was a force on the field when she played softball. When Talitha realized I was home, she squealed, slid onto the couch, and patted it so I could take a seat beside her. She put her arms around me and cuddled up to my side, while Tori did the same on the other side. "Hey, Daddy, what are you doing?" she asked. "Hi, sweetie. It's been a hell of a day." Oh, those huge blue puddles looked up at me. "How's it going?" "You're not going to believe this," Tori declared. Talitha nodded and said, "Sorry, sis, but you know how I went after Daddy's Jack. Mom was home when I got there, and there was a truck full of stuff in the driveway. She told me she was leaving Daddy and moving." "What?" The was taken aback. I yanked her against me and said, "It was obvious." "You're kidding, right?" She said, "I'm afraid not, baby." "What did you do?" My feelings were a little hurt. Tori had asked me exactly that. Why did they think I'd done something? "He didn't do a damn thing," Tori said in a hurry. "It was all Mom's doing. She met someone, some Charles, she just knows will love her." "What? How are you sure?" "You could have missed," Tori cut her off. She took out her phone and activated the recording for the. "I knew you were going to say that." I wrote it down. The exact opposite response was received once more. Talitha started crying and shed real tears without waiting for the drama to stop. Tori shifted to her other side, and we gave the sandwich while giving her hugs and cuddles and allowing her to cry over her shattered heart. Tears were pouring down my cheeks, and Tori was also wiping her eyes. I finally got it out. "What are you going to do, Daddy?" "I'm not sure," I admitted. "What can I do?" "She's leaving. I can't make her stay." "I'm not sure I'd want to, even if I could, at this point." Tori said, "Talitha, what are you going to do?" She said, "I'm going to talk to my mom." I know you guys heard it straight from her lips. I need to hear it for myself. I know the tape isn't lying. If she tells me what she told you guys, I'm going to be really mad at her. I already am. I'll also be deadly sad. I'm not," Tori said. "I know, doll. I'm still in shock. Daddy, you need to talk to a lawyer to defend yourself." "Jesus, Tori, just listen to yourself," Talitha responded. "Protect myself? This is Mom we're talking about." So Mom, the woman we've known all our lives, suddenly decides she needs to separate from Dad, gets involved with some scrappy dude, and you don't think she's capable of all sorts of other unscrupulous behavior?" replied Tori. The answered, "Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like the Twilight Zone, Tori." "I know, sis. It is, but we need to deal with it." "Is she still home?" Talitha responded. Talitha got up and said, "As far as I know," to which I replied, "But I have no idea how long she'll be there." She said, "I'll go over there and talk to her." After we decided on a location and time, she said, "Meet me for dinner," and walked out. I wrapped my arm around Tori as she drew nearer to me. We sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in our own thoughts. She said, "Daddy, do you know any lawyers?" I jolted out of my daydream. Yeah, I guess I do, but I don't know any that handle cases like this." "Call someone you know and trust and ask them to refer you to them," I replied. I couldn't believe we'd reached this point. I was dumb, happy, and fat a few hours ago. I was now discussing contacting a divorce attorney. This woman had a wicked hook and was the mother of all curveballs. I knew a number of very powerful lawyers. I even knew some government lawyers, and some of them were my classmates at university. Tori suggested a few names, and I brainstormed and came up with one. Specifically, she went by Amanda Sloan. After speaking with someone in her office, I scheduled a meeting and was given a list of items I needed to prepare for and bring with me. Tori drove me home because I had to pack everything I would need for the reception the following day. She told me they would be staying with me for some time and packed for herself and Talitha. She insisted that they didn't need to do that, even though I objected. Since she was set on her course, I knew it would be best to let it go. She helped me gather all of my financial records, which I needed. I gave her the login credentials for our bank while I worked on the investment accounts. Daddy, you're not going to believe this, she replied. I said, what, honey? You have $50 in a checking account and $3,000 in a money market account, she stated. Is that enough to keep you from going below the minimum? What? Yes, I think that's the minimum, I replied, but we should have a lot more than that. Mom must be making some really nasty moves, she continued. Are you going to be okay? Yeah, I'll have to move some money around, open a few different accounts, I guess. I have money at a credit union that she doesn't have access to, and I'll probably use it. But that's pretty cold-blooded, Tori, really. I think it's illegal, Dad. I don't think it would be good for her. You'll have to ask your lawyer. Talitha was quite shaken by the talk with her mother when we met her for dinner. Her words, I had to hear it from her, I'm sorry, and I knew you were telling me the truth, but some things you need to hear for yourself. You're not mad at me, are you? No, baby, I understand, I replied. Tori embraced her. I wouldn't believe it if I wasn't there either, she replied. What are you going to do, Tally? Mom has a fantasy about getting you and me together so we can meet Charles, she replied. I told her, we love him. Not only was I not going to meet Chucky Boy, but I didn't really want to meet her, but she lied to you guys about what, said Tori. She cheated. I made her tell me. I told her that if she lied to me, I'd find out, and I'd never talk to her again. She was having fun with a guy. I'm sorry, Dad, but I don't want anything to do with her. Don't apologize at my expense, I replied. Hell, well, I guess we know now. I don't want anything to do with her either. That wasn't entirely true. I was definitely not okay, and my emotions were all over the place. Grief, sadness, bewilderment, yes, anything but the predominant one was anger. I was pissed off to the max, and everything else took a back seat. I was on a lawyer's hiatus. I was driven to Talitha's place by Tori, who waited for me. The woman Amanda Sloan was reserved and tense. She terrified me to no end, or at least she would have if she hadn't been my ally, which she was. She prepared divorce documents in 2 days, placed a financial restraining order on Tessa, and demanded that she reimburse her for every penny she had stolen. Except for the regular expenses of each day, neither of us was allowed to move or transfer any assets or money. Tessa called me as a result, asking, "Why are you being so difficult, Mark?" I replied, "What do you mean I'm being difficult?" I don't want to talk on the phone, she replied. She seemed a little surprised to see Tori and the girls, but she said, "I'll come over." She said, "Why are you here?" "I wanted to talk to your father alone." "We live here," Tia replied. Tori told her, "We don't want Daddy to be alone." They grabbed their bags and left without saying anything to Tessa, who appeared to be about to say something but then changed her mind. "Don't worry, we won't stay since you're here." I reminded her, "You said you wanted to talk." She sighed and sat down across from me at the bar, asking, "What did you want to say?" "Mark, I don't want this to be any more complicated than it has to be. I still love you. I just need to be with Charles. We can be friends. We have daughters who need both parents. I have nothing to do with your relationship with the girls," I assured her. "You'll have to deal with that." "Friends? I don't think so, Tessa. I don't have any friends who treat me the way you do. Hell, I don't even have enemies like you." "Why did you get that court order?" she inquired. I was just taking money to get settled and pay my moving expenses." "Well, half of it was mine," I informed her. "Maybe more than half, but we'll put that behind us." "You have a job, Tessa. You make good money." "Yeah, but along with your job, you have accounts at the state credit union," she replied. "Yeah, and you've never contributed a dime there," I replied. "As long as we were together, everything was ours." Now I have to think about what's yours and what's mine. Let the court sort it out. You thought Chucky Boy was a roller skating enthusiast, she sighed. Stop acting childish, Mark. His name is Charles. You think I care what you think? I replied. I'll call him and you whatever I want. Is that all you have to say? No, it isn't. I want to talk about the girls. What did you say to them? I didn't say a damn thing, she responded. Tori was here, remember? She recorded your speech and showed it to Talitha. The only person they talked to was you. You must have said something to them, she stated. They wouldn't have been so angry if you hadn't. Listen to yourself. I said, Jesus, Tessa. You dropped a bomb on all of us. They're smarter than any of us. They don't need me to tell them. They can see for themselves what you've done. How long has this been going on, Tessa? Why didn't you ever tell me you were happy with me, with us? We could have tried to make things right. She looked a little wistful. I wasn't unhappy, she said. Haven't you ever met a man, Mark, who knew immediately that he was important to you? Did you know that instant attraction, like two magnets that are attracted to each other? Yes, I did, I told her. I met you. She couldn't look at me. Can't we just move on, Mark? It doesn't have to be bitter and angry. We can still be friends. We've loved each other for too long to give it all up. We can, I said. The problem is that I don't want to be your friend anymore, Tessa. What's more, I almost never want to see you again. It's a big city, after the divorce. I doubt I'll have an excuse to talk to you again. That's not true, she said. The girls will have their own things to do, graduations, games, and maybe weddings. Life goes on, Mark. I guess so, I said. I'll do what I have to do. I'm still the same person, she said. You used to like me. No, I didn't, I replied. At least, if I did, I never really knew you. I'm done with you. You can leave. No, I'd rather leave. Lock the door behind you. I grabbed my keys and jumped into my Jeep. I drove to the river, parked, got out of the car, and leaned against the front, trying to find my calm and find my center. I stood there for about half an hour, and then a voice brought me out of my reverie. Hi, Daddy. It was Talitha. Hi, doll. How did you find me? Yeah, we all have the family location feature on our phones, she said. You insisted on your own, remember? I laughed. Yeah, insisted. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've used it since you were 18. She slid into me and took my hand, putting it on her shoulders. Her small, warm body pressed against mine, and I felt comfortable. It's beautiful here, isn't it? She said. I like just looking at the river, listening to the ducks. Yeah, I said. I don't want to interfere with your feelings, but what did Mom say? She asked. I sighed. She just wanted to know why I was making her give the money back. She wants us to be friends. I told her we weren't, actually, but she said we have to be together on things involving you and Tori, so I better get used to it. She was silent for a moment. I don't think you'll have to worry about that, she finally said. Tori and I have talked a lot. Neither of us is going to invite her to any of our get-togethers, Dad. I squeezed her lightly. Are you sure, doll? She nodded, her hair spreading across her face. Yeah, I'm sure. Not that we miss her and wish she was different, but it's not something I'm going to go through, Daddy. Yeah, I get it. Let's call Tori and ask her if she wants to meet us for Mexican food, I said. She was fine with that, but Tori couldn't make it. She had a project at the university, so it was just me and my baby girl. It was all pretty predictable. Everyone knows people who have gotten divorced. If they haven't experienced it personally, we've heard the stories, even if we never thought it would happen to us. There were many meetings, conversations, and eventually we settled the details and the divorce went through. The girls stayed with me for 2 weeks before I insisted that they move back to their apartment. They both objected vehemently, but I needed them to get their lives straightened out, back to their old ways. Look, I told them, I'd be happy if you both lived here for the rest of my days. I never wanted you to move out, but you did. I understood why, and I still do. Things have changed for me, but they haven't for you. You have your own lives. I hope there will always be room for me in them, but I want you both to remain you. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy, Talitha said. We don't want you to be lonely. Well then, call me. Come over any time. Say you want to go out to dinner. Ask me to go out with you. Do what you've always done. They sniffled a little, and I gave them a long hug. I get it, Daddy, Tori said. I know you're right. They continued to keep me informed about their lives, and the day the divorce was final, they came back and stayed with me for another week. I had no idea what was going on between them and their mother, and they never mentioned her. I continued to study, took a few more papers and extra classes. I missed being married, missing having someone to snuggle up to at night, someone to take care of, someone to do little things for. When I woke up in the night to turn around and cuddle my wife, the empty bed usually brought me to my senses, and the longing was crushing. Gradually, I got better. It took a year before I realized it, then 2. Tori had gotten her master's degree and was working on her doctoral dissertation. Talitha got her bachelor's degree and put her studies on hold for a while. She went to work for a mortgage company and seemed to be thriving. Tessa interfered in our lives from time to time. She showed up at Tia's graduation and made a scene. She overheard the girls mention that we were going to celebrate and insisted that she was coming with us. Mom, are you sure you shouldn't hurry back to Chucky Boy? Said Tori. She frowned and looked like a storm cloud. Charles and I aren't together anymore, she announced. Oh, that's too bad, Talitha said. When did this happen? If you were talking to me, you'd know. It's been 18 months. Well, we've been busy, Tori said. It was better than most comedy shows. I snorted, and Tessa threw me an angry look. We all arrived in different cars, so we drove to the barbecue where we had arranged to have dinner. We managed to get an extra chair for Tessa, but the girls made it clear they didn't want her sitting there. She didn't stay long after dinner, and I was flying to Terra the next day to discuss plans for the resort. It was a beautiful place, with a beautiful ocean and great beaches, and I decided I would spend a lot of time there. I went to a few clubs, met a few people, danced with some lovely ladies, got lucky twice, and came home refreshed. I decided it was time to come out of my shell and start living again. I considered returning to California for the vacations, as I was born and raised there, and I wanted to walk around the old neighborhood, see how things had changed, and maybe meet some of the people. I knew them from high school and saw the results of their lives. The girls were too busy to come over, even though I invited them. I made the decision to move into the motorhome that we owned. We connected a small Wrangler to it and took a spin around the community. After serving everyone and making sure we had everything we needed, I got in the car. It was a great time. I attended a variety of events, camped out, and made a lot of friends, mostly couples who were involved in similar activities. It was kind of depressing to be single, but it was what it was. Due to all the stops, it took me 3 weeks to get there, but once I found a spot and settled in, I was able to unhook the Wrangler and get ready to SSE. During my 3 days of driving around Ventura and Santa Barbara, I noticed some changes, but not enough to make it difficult for me to get around. While perusing the newspaper while seated outside the Coffee Connection coffee shop on Rabla and Oy, I became aware of a minor disturbance. A few Karens were attempting to enter without wearing masks. They were a pain in the ass, for sure, but I reasoned that after 2 freaking years, everybody would figure it out. As a number of people waited to enter, Karen remained in her place. Disgusted, one woman gave up and moved toward the tables. After taking a seat, she took out her phone. She was probably waiting for the riot to stop. She had a very recognizable appearance. Though I knew I had seen her before, I was unable to identify her. Not until Karen eventually left and the woman went inside for coffee did I realize that it was Jasmine Dion's walk that had triggered my memory. I recalled. How could I have overlooked it? When I was in the 3rd grade, she had moved to Oi. She got a desk in the next row directly across from me, and although I wasn't much into girls, I still looked at her as she made her way back to her desk. Those eyes, so dark and nearly black, and burning huge, are something I will always remember. Her face lit up and her white teeth flashed as she smiled at me. Never again was I the same. She was now magical, and my perception of girls had completely changed. While we were working on an assignment, she sent me a note. All it said was hi and her name. Mine was written on a different piece of paper. She gave me one, and I wanted to keep it. During our one recess, I couldn't help but be drawn to her. We kicked around the soccer ball I had on the playground. It never changed that she was a much better soccer player than I was. I was captivated by her since she was the most athletic girl I had ever met and had played soccer her entire high school career. It transpired that my house was situated behind hers, and that she only lived 3 blocks away. Every day, we strolled home together, and she quickly became my closest friend. We tried to work out our schedules as much as the school would allow, and by the time we moved on to junior high school, I was deeply in love with Jasmine Dion. We sat together in the cafeteria every day throughout high school. Sadly, the sentiment was not shared by both parties. I was deeply attached to her, and I was her best friend. I suffered in silence because I was too shy or embarrassed to tell her what was going through my mind, which I never did. She always made sure I got 1 or 2, so I gritted my teeth when her boyfriend of the month joined us for lunch and watched her dance with everyone at school. She asked me, "Mark, why don't you have a girlfriend?" one day while we were playing cribbage in my room. I was terribly embarrassed and had no idea how to respond to her question because the girl I wanted didn't seem to notice me. She said, "I'm going to help you." I managed to say, "What? How? What do you mean?" She was cryptic, saying, "You'll have to wait and see," but it was clear very quickly. A succession of her friends soon showed up. She also had some lovely friends. Until I moved to Texas and she moved to Los Angeles, we remained best friends. She disappeared from my life for a number of years. The years had been kind to her when she finally made her appearance. That sensual, seductive girl evolved into a sensual, seductive woman, but she had an airiness to her. She was obviously minding her own business based on the way she looked. She wore a figure-hugging, beige dress that was clearly silk. Her striking black shoes with a low heel highlighted her stunning legs, which protruded 3 inches above her knees. She was drinking her coffee as I watched her scroll through her phone, and then she stopped. She seemed to sense that I was observing her. To make sure she wouldn't think some spooky stalker was staring at her, I quickly lowered my gaze to my iPad. She looked back, and I caught the squeal of delight out of the corner of my eye. "Oh my God, Mark, is that you?" she exclaimed as she turned to face me. She lunged at me, and I got up in time to catch her. She nearly brought me down. It occurred to me that she had greeted me in this manner after a long absence. Her coffee was about to burn my chest, so I pulled myself out of the situation before it could burn me. Our whole lives, geez, Mark, it feels like it's been 100 years. What are you doing here? Are you alone? Is your family with you? Oh my God, I can't believe it's you, she exclaimed. Here, sit down before you scald my stomach, I replied. She laughed, took a seat on the bench, and drew me in close to her, putting her arms around my waist and pressing herself against me. When I placed mine on her shoulders, time seemed to stop. Mark and Jeanta, best friends, just like back then in 5th grade when we sat on the bench in the cafeteria. "Why are you here?" she repeated. "How long have you been here? How long are you here for?" "Give me a chance," Jeanta chuckled. She laughed. "You never let me talk." "Okay, I'll just sit here, and you talk." I have a van, I informed her. I'm leaving on a tour of the country, and I just wanted to see the neighborhood. I've been here for 3 days, and I don't have a schedule. But why are you here? Last I heard, you were in Los Angeles. A shadow crossed her face and then vanished. Her words, I moved here 3 years ago, were clear. I have a real estate office here, and business is booming. Are you going to stay for a while? I'd love to chat with you. What are you doing tonight? She hadn't changed much. She brought a smile to my face and heart. I said, I don't have any plans, to her. I decide what I'm going to do today every morning when I wake up. Mark, I know you're married. And have kids, she said. Is your wife with you? It was my turn to hesitate a little. I'm divorced, Peach. It's a long, boring, and painful story. I don't have time for long, boring, and painful stories right now, she said, bestowing one of her dazzling smiles upon me. God, she was gorgeous. You're taking me out to dinner tonight, she said. I have a fashion show in 20 minutes. Give me your number. I did, and she immediately texted me, save me in your contacts, she said. I'll send you a text with the time and my address. Do you only have a van? No, I have a Jeep that I tow, I said. Okay, you can drive, she said. I've got to run, Mark. God, it's so good to see you. I can't wait for tonight. Put on a shirt with a collar. She had always stirred up a storm of emotion in me, and that hadn't changed one bit. I wandered around the store and remembered something Hint had adored, turquoise. She'd been collecting it for as long as I'd known her. I wondered if she still loved it. I was reminded of this when I passed by a store that sold handmade turquoise and silver jewelry. I went in and made my purchases. The woman who made this jewelry was very talented. There was a heavy silver arm bracelet with a large stone, and to it was a dainty little ankle bracelet with stones attached to it, making a single set. I took it and asked for it to be wrapped. I hoped Hint was still collecting them. I went back to the parking lot, used their services, put on black slacks and a pink button-down shirt, spritzed on some cologne, and felt more ready than ever. She texted me her address, and I pulled out my iPad to look up directions. When I got there, I was shocked. It was the old part of Aji, and it had a great location. It had gardens, black wrought iron fencing, gates, a guest house over the garage, and the house itself was worth millions. It was old, stuccoed, 3 stories, and I felt intimidated. I parked on the street, honked at the gate, and they let me in. I walked past fountains, a riot of flowers, a large koi pond, and walked up to the front door. In front of the garage, I could see a green Jaguar E-Type from the late 60s. There were mature avocado trees growing everywhere, and it was a damn beautiful place. I marveled at how well this realtor was doing. The bell made an impressive, rivally deep and ringing ding-dong sound, and when she opened the door, I was paralyzed. She saw the look on my face and giggled. Am I coming through? She asked. I managed to thaw enough to speak. Don't get caught up in compliments, Hint. You know how you look. You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. It was the right answer. She threw herself on top of me and hugged me tightly for a long minute. God, it's so good to see you, Mark. I've missed you so much. Hey, I brought you something, I said. She looked in the gift bag, dug through the fabric, and pulled out a box. Opening it, she let out a squeal of delight. I can't believe you remembered. Let me get the bag, she said. I booked us a room at the boathouse in Henry Beach. She walked into the house, and I looked around. The entryway had a spiral staircase, seemingly marble, that went up to all 3 floors. A tall grandfather clock stood between 2 of the windows, and a huge chandelier hung from the ceiling that looked like it had been decorated in gilt. Everything here had a luxury feel to it. She returned a few seconds later and took my hand as we walked toward the gate. Are you sure you want to take my Jeep? I asked. She laughed. What, you think I'm too good to drive a Jeep? I'm still me, Mark. I had to chuckle. Well, it looks like you're too well dressed for a Jeep, and damn, hint, from the looks of this place, pretty well settled in. She looked up at me and giggled, her face brightening and her very white teeth gleaming. I've done well, haven't I? Yes, what are you into, girl? We got into the Jeep, and she typed the driving directions into her phone. Well, right now, I'm finalizing a real estate development deal on Lake Casitas, she said. As soon as I get approval from the city, I'm going to get a really big score. The real estate here is just crazy, Mark. I can only imagine, I said. Tell me about your life. Well, it's like a big book, she said. Hell, how long ago was it? Let's see. I moved to West Covina, became an agent for a big firm, and worked my ass off. I made tons of money, got really lucky, and started my own agency. She hesitated. I don't have enough time to tell you before we get to the restaurant. You tell me about yourself. I know you have children. I do, I told her. I asked her to open my iPad, used my face to unlock it, and she flipped through my photo albums. My God, your girls are gorgeous, she said. Is this your wife, ex-wife? I told her we divorced almost 3 years ago. I didn't know. I apologize if it's a sore spot. I shrugged. It is. You can't run around and be depressed forever. I'm fine, really, and it doesn't bother me to talk about it. Are you married, hint? I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. No, that's the one mistake I've never made. I was in a long relationship, but we never married. I'm somewhat like you, but it's been 4 years for me, and I can't say I like talking about it. Are you close with your girlfriends? Very, I told her. I invited them to come on a trip with me, and they wanted to, but they're too damn busy. I think they'll fly down and meet me somewhere the first chance they get, hang out with Dad for a few days, and then come back again. She smiled at me, dazzling me again. That's so sweet, she said. What about you, any kids? I asked. No, just me, she said. I always thought I'd make a bad mom. Mine is amazing, but she set the bar too high. I could never be her. We arrived, and she took my hand as we walked inside. After the food arrived, she started chatting with me like she always did when we were kids. The guy I was in a relationship with was a real estate agent at another firm, she said. We talked about having him move in with me, but one thing or another happened, and we never decided to do it. Then she looked at me seriously. That's the part one don't like to talk about. I reached across the table and squeezed her palm. It's okay, hint. You don't need to tell me. Yes, I do, she said. I was working with him on a major development deal and found out he was cheating me. He went overboard buying a big piece of land and didn't do his homework. Oh. That doesn't sound good. I said, it isn't right. In the middle of the lot we wanted was 200 acres that belonged to the city. They sold it to him, but it was a gift from the estate that went to the city with the condition that it couldn't be developed for 50 years. It had to remain natural. And so, he found himself with millions tied up in something he couldn't sell and couldn't develop. What happened, I asked. He tried to get me to buy the property, told me a bunch of lies about how he was going to get around the problem. It never happened. He pulled some shady deals, tried to bribe people, got caught, and went to jail. Fortunately, I always sensed something was fishy, so I didn't look into it until it all blew up. So what did you do? I asked after Bob went to prison. I sold my agency and moved back home, she said. It was the best move of my life. And look, there you are, definitely the best move of my life. I was shocked to see you, I told her. She smiled. I was too. Are you excited? God, yes, Peach. It was such a surprise. I had no idea you were back. I was just planning to wander around the neighborhood, reminisce about old places and old times, and then head to the coast. How long will you be here? She asked. Well, it's not like I have anywhere to be until the fall semester, I told her. Even then, all my classes will be online, and I have one job in engineering consulting in December. Mark, if I put off all but the bare minimum of meetings, can we go for a walk with you? She asked, her pretty face flushed slightly. I mean, if you don't want to, if you have plans. I have plans, I said, and her face lowered. And every one of them will be better if I fulfill them with you, her eyes sparkled. Really? I mean, oh yeah, let's do all you have planned. She was so excited, I had to laugh. You haven't changed a bit, Hinta. Oh, but I have changed, she said. I've gotten smarter. She lowered her voice to a whisper. I also keep growing hair in weird places. I laughed out loud. After that, we caught the attention of the other restaurant patrons with our antics. It was so much fun to spend time with this amazing woman. She was funny, incredibly intelligent. As I walked her to the door, she chatted nonstop, making plans about when and where she might go with me. At the door, she gave me a hug, pulling me tight against her, and left. I swear I spent the next 2 weeks having the time of my life. Only with my girls did I get that kind of pleasure. Hinta was like a breath of fresh air. I didn't realize how familiar my life with Tessa had become. I became comfortable, relaxed, and I guess inertia took over. Maybe she felt that way, but it was exciting and new. It wasn't exactly new. It was like when I was a kid, walking home from school with my best friend, who happened to be the beautiful girl I loved, and life was sparkling and new every day. I wondered how long it would last, if the new sparkle would fade and everything would become ordinary. I began to notice things. I've never been the most sensitive guy in the world, and probably didn't notice many things, but this one was special. I started to notice the way Hinta was looking at me. Those huge brown eyes with flecks of gold and green, turning golden honey in the sunlight, looked at me in a way I had never seen before. The 2 weeks I had promised to stay had turned into 3, and I had no intention of leaving. Shasta never mentioned what I said about the 2 weeks, and she didn't talk about me leaving either. We were together almost every day, and she always specified when we would be together before dropping me off or dropping her off. It wasn't until it had been almost 2 months. We had been antique shopping all day, and she invited me to come in when I dropped her off that she surprised me. We were sitting snuggled up against each other on her couch. Some old kung fu show was on the TV that neither of us were watching. We were sipping a very good single malt, and then I noticed that she hadn't said anything or answered me for a minute. I turned around to see if something was wrong, and she was looking up at me, her eyes liquid. I squeezed her and asked, "Is something wrong, Peach?" "No, yes, maybe," she replied. I laughed. "Well, that certainly clears things up, Mark. I need to tell you something, to ask you." She hesitated, inhaled deeply, and exhaled with a sigh. "Mark, we've been in touch for a while now. I think you're staying just for me. Don't you?" "Yes," I told her. "Why?" "That's what I need to know. Do we have something going on, Mark? I mean, we're just old friends, and you're just spending time with a friend." "Well, that's how it started," I began. "What do you think is going on?" "It's more than friends for me, Mark. I mean, I remember all the good times, how much I loved you, and you're still the guy I loved back then, only even more so. Why didn't you ever ask me out, Mark? Jesus, Hinta, you were my best friend. I wanted to ask you out, believe me, but I was afraid it would be weird, especially if you didn't want to go out with me, and I'd lose you. I couldn't take that risk." "It wouldn't have been weird," she said. "I wanted you to ask me out, Dex. I tried everything I could think of to get you to pay attention to me, but you never did. I would have asked you, but I was afraid too." "Really?" I asked. "Really," she whispered. "I loved you with all my heart, Mark. I just finally accepted that we weren't meant to be together, that you loved me, but not like that." "Oh my God, Peach, you couldn't have been more wrong," I said. "I guess I was just as clueless. You were the girl of my dreams. I used to walk around in a daze all the time, wishing you were mine. Do you still dream about it? She asked. You mean, if just leaving and we're never going to see each other again, I think you should leave now, Mark. You make me fall in love with you all over again, and if you don't invest in me here, with me, I won't be able to be this close to you anymore. How long can you stay here, Mark? Indefinitely, I told her. I mean, I can stay, really. I have a job that I have to get out in December. I have a house. I love my girls, Shinta and Hinta, and they are a huge part of my life. I know, she murmured. We'll get through this if we try. Mark, let's leave it at that. I want something else right now. What? I asked. She led me into the bedroom, and we got down to it. I remembered back to when I was in my 20s. It was like I was transported back in time, and Hinta was a time machine. My online classes started, and I spent some time teaching, but most of the time we spent together. 1 week followed another, and the first thing I realized was that 4 months had passed. Tori and Talitha kept asking me when I was coming home, and I think they knew something was up. They kept asking what I was doing in California for so long, and while I wasn't trying to hide anything from them, I wanted to tell them about Hinta face to face. But that was taken out of my hands when one day, while in class, I got an alert on my phone. It was a text from Talitha. Dad, I'm coming to visit you for a week. I'm flying into Los Angeles on Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Will you pick me up? Sure, doll. I can't wait, I replied. I couldn't just spring everything on her when she arrived, so I talked to Hinta. Kids, Talitha is coming to stay with me for a week, I said. We were in the van, cuddled up on the couch. Oh, she said. Mark, you have to tell them. I'm not going to hide for a whole week. I can't stand not seeing you for a week, and besides, I want to meet them. I know how much you love them. They look like girls I would love very much, and I can't wait to meet them. I squeezed her. I know. I want you to meet them too. I was just looking for the right time to talk to them. I was thinking of flying home for the weekend to talk to them. That's not going to happen anymore, so I thought about inviting them to Zoom so we can get to know each other a little bit. Can you handle it? Yes. When do you want to do it? I'll contact them and figure out a time, I said. Monday night, I think. Do you have any plans? I still managed to get the girls to agree to Zoom with me, even though they were very suspicious of why I wanted to do it and didn't want me to tell them until the last minute. I hooked them up, they chatted with me for a while, and finally, I worked up the courage. I know I've been mysterious as hell, I said. I was planning on going back and talking to you too. You've been hitting me up, and I've been blowing you off. Dad, you're not as smart as you think you are, and we're not as dumb as you think we are, Tori said. Yes, we are, Talitha picked up on that. You've met someone, haven't you? I heard Hinta giggle there in the kitchen. Yes, and I really think you'll like her, I said. The look on their faces was priceless. Their jaws dropped, and they sat stunned for a minute. Hinta was dying of laughter, and then Tori said, Nah, good, Daddy, well done. Talitha is coming out, and don't think you're going to be able to pull the wool over us. I could hardly contain my extreme satisfaction at leaving them speechless for once in my life. As a matter of fact, that's exactly why I wanted to meet you, I said. Girls, I want you to meet someone. Be nice, okay? Don't let her see what you really are. There were twin mocking snorts. We will, Tori said. I called out to Hinta, and she came in and sat on my lap. Girls, this is Hinta, I said. I pointed to them in turn. This is my eldest, Tori, and my baby, Talitha. Hinta waved her hand. Hello, ladies. Hinta has been my best friend throughout high school, I told them. We've kind of reconnected. I'll tell you the whole story, but she's the reason I've been here for so long and probably will be here for a long time to come. Best friend, huh? Are you out of your mind, Dad? God, Hinta, you're so gorgeous. Talk about TMI. She laughed. I can't believe you said that, Tori. We're going to really like you, that's for sure. You're just gorgeous, just like Tori said. You know we're the gatekeepers for Daddy, right? Hinta nodded. I'd think less of you if you weren't. I love him, girls. I think I've always loved him, but I let him get away once. It was partly his fault, but I'll do my best to make him a part of my life. I don't want you to think I'm taking him away from you. Well, I don't like him being in freaking California all the time, Tori said. We need to see him too, Hinta. I know, and we'll work something out. I understand, believe me, Hinta said. I have things I'm not ready to talk about even with Mark yet. I'm so glad Talitha is coming. I can't wait to meet her and you as well, Tori. Do you think you can make it? I can, Tori said. I'll take the weekend off. I don't want to take your father or any part of him away from you, Hinta said. I want to be a part of his life and a part of your life too. I want to love you and for you to love me. Tears came to her eyes, and the girls realized she was getting emotional. Oh, it'll work out, Hinta, Tori said. We'll make it work. Tori and I know a thing or two about making things work. I laughed. They don't lie, I said to Hinta. They're mean little creatures, but my heart belongs to them for life, and they're keeping it safe. I believe you, especially about the imps, she replied. The girls giggled and engaged Hinta in conversation, asking her a million questions and telling awkward anecdotes about me. We used up our entire 40-minute session. When we were done, I leaned back in my chair and just held Hinta in my lap. Well, these are my babies, I said. Impressions? They're adorable, she said. I love them already. They're great. They have your sarcastic sense of humor, just from a woman's point of view. I pretended to be shocked. Don't look at me like that, she said. You know how you are. When Talitha arrived, Hinta decided I should pick her up myself just to get our daddy-daughter groove going. So, I picked her up and drove her to the In-N-Out in Hollywood. When she came out of the gate, it took my breath away. I had forgotten how beautiful my baby girl was. She ran up, threw herself at me, and almost knocked me down. She wrapped her arms around me and dragged me behind her luggage, walking beside me. I realized how tall she was. It seemed like just yesterday she was a tiny little girl, but now she had grown and turned into a spectacular woman. How did this happen? Tori was usually a little quieter than she was with other people, but she was never like that with me. She chatted with me the whole way while we ate hamburgers and rode in the Jeep. She wanted to tell me a million things and asked me a million questions. When we got to the van, she still wasn't exhausted. She chided me for not letting her take the bedroom, but when I showed her how the table was pushed back and made a second bed, she was thrilled. We just chatted for a couple of hours, and then I told her Hinta had invited us over for dinner. She was very excited, kicked me out to shower and change in privacy, and when she called me back in, she was ready. I changed and used the campground facilities, and we hopped in the Jeep. Tia kept talking about the scenery and neighborhoods we were passing through, and the closer we got to H's house, the more impressed she became. I pulled up to the gate and entered the combination. When we pulled into the house, Tia looked at me with big eyes. "Daddy, your girlfriend lives here. You have a lot more game than I would have guessed," she said. I laughed. "She's a major real estate developer. You never would have guessed that back in high school. She's Hispanic, in case you hadn't noticed, and her parents came here from Honduras about 5 years before she was born. Her dad worked in an almond orchard and eventually owned it, and her mom owned a small tamal farm. When we were kids, she did it all by herself." Wow, Tia was impressed. We parked and walked into the house. Hinta was in the kitchen, and as soon as we walked in, she and Tia froze for a second, looking at each other. I was taken aback, but they both broke out into huge smiles and rushed to hug each other. "What are you cooking?" asked Tia. "It smells delicious." "Well, our main course will be quite spicy," Hinta explained. Do you like spicy food? Hell yes, Tia said. Jacinta, you can call me Tally if you want. Tori always does, and Daddy sometimes. Thanks, honey, but I adore Tia, I said. I can change, but you don't mind? Talitha laughed. Not at all. Tell me more about the spice. Jeanta came over and gave me a quick kiss. Then she and Tia walked over to the stove, standing side by side. Jeanta opened the oven, and a delicious, mouth-watering aroma wafted out. These are lamb ribs with lots of spices, she explained. We'll take the meat off the bones and put it on tortillas with pico, brown rice, and refried beans. Mark, you should go out and find avocados. I haven't picked them in a couple of days, so there should be plenty. Oh my God, Talitha said. You just went and picked avocados? Jacinta laughed. Yeah, I have a lot of trees, she said. I want to go, Talitha said. Do you need help, Hinta? No, I'm all set. Just need to peel and slice the avocados, she said. You go with your father, and I'll put the dishes on the table. I grabbed a basket, and Tia and I walked around the property picking ripe avocados. This is an amazing place, she told me. And Hinta is even prettier and cuter in person. You're doing great, Dad. I laughed. Thank you, doll. I'm glad you like her. I love her, you know that? Yeah, I can tell, she said. She loves you too. I can see it in the way she looks at you. Dinner was as delicious as it smelled, and sitting at Cha's huge table with two of the most beautiful women on the planet wasn't bad either. I volunteered to do the dishes, and when I was done, Hinta and Tia were sitting on the couch with Jay's laptop, conspiring about something. When I walked in, they closed the laptop, and Hinta patted the couch between them, motioning for me to sit down. Oh, I see you two are up to something, I said. What? Said Tally. He's being paranoid, Jeanta. It happens to old people, I guess, Jeanta giggled. Hey. We're the same age, I said. Yeah, but you're not paranoid, Talitha said. Neither am I said, but I do know you. You've been plotting against me your whole life. Yes, but every one of my plots has been for your benefit, she said. We made plans, they made plans that didn't include me, and we played a couple of games before heading back to the van. Talitha kept throwing slanted glances at me until I got nervous. What, said I like her, Daddy, she said. You're a lucky man. I know, right? You better not let her get away, I said. It's a good thing I'm here or you'd be in trouble. Huh? The fact that you're here would probably get you in trouble, but seriously, I'm glad you're here, doll. And I knew you'd like her. For a moment, she sank into thought. Daddy, how do you think Mom will react? Well, since it's none of her business and I don't plan on seeing her or asking her, I don't care, I said. I see her from time to time, she said, and so does Tori. What do you want me to tell her when she asks about you? Do you think she'll ask? She nodded. Yeah, she always asks. I had no idea, I said. Are you lying to her? She laughed. No, but I tell her almost nothing. Almost nothing about you. I just tell her he's fine and then tell her about something else. I guess I'll just tell her you met someone. If I have to explain anything, do what you think is right. I trust you. You're smarter than me. Yeah, smarter, she giggled and smiled at me, the way she'd smiled since she was just a baby and first stole my heart. We had a wonderful week, sometimes just me and my baby girl, sometimes the three of us, and a few times they went out and did things without me. By the time Talitha got back to Austin, they had bonded and were making plans for the next time we would be together. Tori flew in for the weekend 3 weeks later, and her reaction to Jeanta was just as positive as Talitha's. We were on a roll. I stayed at work until it was time to do some consulting. I talked to Tori, Tia, and Jeanta, and we agreed to take a little working vacation. Jeanta and I flew to Tara, and the girls arrived the following evening. I worked during the day while they did tourist stuff, and we spent the evenings in a tropical paradise. By the time we left, I had 3 very shy girls, and Tori and Tia were Cha's best friends. I had to go back to Austin to do some real work in my office, which was going to take about 2 weeks. Jinta flew in the second weekend. The girls picked her up Friday morning, and she spent the day with them. Until I left, we met for dinner, and Jinta stayed with me Sunday night. We were going to take the girls for a walk, but unfortunately, their mother chose that day for one of her infrequent and unscheduled visits. She was well aware that if she tried to warn them in advance, they would be busy, so she always tried to catch them off guard. When Jinta and I arrived, she was at their apartment, and it was awkward as hell. Tori introduced Jinta as Daddy's girlfriend, and you could see the shock on Tessa's face. They tried to escort Tessa out by telling her we were going on a date, but she wouldn't budge. "So how did you meet Mark?" she asked, eyeing Jinta. Jinta smiled. "Oh, I was seated across from him in math class," she said. Tessa looked dumbfounded. "You're both taking the class?" she asked. I laughed. "No, we were 10 years old." "You've known each other since you were 10? Tessa was puzzled. "How come I've never heard of you or met you before?" "We kind of lost track of each other," Jinta said. "We only met again this year." Tori interrupted this pleasant scene. "We'd love to stay to chat, Mom, but we have plans." Tessa snorted unhappily, but Tori firmly escorted her out the door. The look on her face would have made milk curdle. "I'm sorry," Tia said to Jinta. "I know it was awkward. She came in about 5 minutes before you and didn't want to leave." Jinta laughed. "That's all right. It was bound to happen sooner or later. Since I have my place in your lives, I'll be there for you." Over dinner and afterward at home, where the girls took us, we had a long conversation. I think the subject had long occupied all our thoughts, but no one wanted to discuss it. Talitha started it. I think she and Tori conspired, and Tia was chosen to be the spokesperson. "Daddy, what are your immediate plans, and what are your long-term plans?" "About what, doll?" I asked. "Well, do you plan on living the rest of your life in a van in California, or do you have something in mind?" I laughed. "No, I don't plan on living in a van for the rest of my life. Jinta and I haven't talked about the long term." "Do you mind if we hang out here while you talk about it?" asked Tori. I looked at Jinta. "I don't mind," she said. "I know how much your father means to you. I know how much you mean to him. You also know that I love him, and I'm not going to let him go." Tori nodded. "Yeah, we know that. We don't like that you live so far away from us," Tia said. "Dad, I talked to some people I know at work, and Jinta and I talked about it too. I'm going to get my broker's license, and she and I are going to start a real estate business here." I looked at Jinta. "Really? You little minx, you haven't said a word." She giggled. "Yes, Mark. I'm going to leave my business in Ohio, but Tia and I agreed that it's a huge market opportunity. And I have an idea. Well, the girls and I kind of came up with it together." "I'm all ears," I said. "I don't know what you want," she said, "but I want you all and always. I want you to live with me in Ohio 6 months of the year. I'll hire an office manager, and we'll spend 3 months of the year here. Talitha will handle most things in our business." "Sounds good," I said, "but that's only 9 months. The other 3 I want to spend on Tara." It was unexpected, but I was in love with the place. As the owner of the resort, I could do that. So that's what we did. It didn't quite work out that way because we were regularly interrupted by trips to Austin when we were in Ohio and vice versa because Jinta needed to take care of business, but that was the general schedule. We didn't let anything disrupt our stay in Tara, and Tori and Tia spent a lot of time with us when we were there. When you least expect it, life throws you a surprise. We were in Austin for 3 months, and Talitha sent me a picture. "Hey Dad, what's up?" "Studying the inspection schedule for interstate bridges in Ohio." How's it going? Just finished looking at commercial real estate, she replied. Can you have lunch late, about an hour? I asked. You can accue me at 1 o'clock. I'll be there. I wrapped it up, and when I walked in, the hostess took me back to the booth. I was surprised to see another girl sitting next to Talitha. The serving girl took my drink order from me. Dad, this is Campbell Martin, she said. She's my girlfriend. I must have looked like an idiot. My jaw dropped, and I know I looked stunned. Campbell was clearly unhappy with my reaction. Her nonchalant face took on an extreme look, and she grabbed her purse. Screw this whole thing, Tally, let me out of here. I need this, she said. Wait, Campbell, please, began Talitha. Please forgive me. I needed to do something and fast. My surprise is what made me act like a fool, Campbell. I'm sorry for what I did. I never knew. Talitha never told me she was gay, not once. You two just dropped a bombshell on me, and now you take offense that I was caught off guard. It's my fault. Tally said, I'm sorry I came down on you like that, Dad. Just cool it. Campbell is my first girlfriend. I would have told you sooner if there was a reason for it. Why didn't you, Did you really think I would love you any less? For God's sake, doll, you have my heart. You know that. She started crying just as the food arrived, jumped up, and headed for the restroom. Damn, man, why did you say that? Asked Campbell. I said, Campbell, I don't know you. I guess if you're Talitha's girlfriend, I'll recognize you. But you don't know me either. Just stop feuding and swearing and treating me like that. It won't help. And seriously, Campbell, don't you think that if you're a lesbian, that's something you'd tell your parents about? I'm not sure, she uttered. I don't have parents. But you don't have a clue either. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't know about parents, but if you have a secret from someone you really love and don't want to hurt or disappoint them, would you tell them and risk getting hurt? Telling her, I have no idea. I don't know what I said or did that made Tally feel like she couldn't trust me, but maybe I wasn't as available as I should have been. When Talitha returned, she made sure her tears weren't visible by applying makeup. As she passed, I took hold of her hand and drew her to me, holding her close. Telling her, I love you with all my heart, you're my doll, and nothing in the world will change that. Now go sit next to your girlfriend. She moved to take a seat beside Campbell. I'm sorry, Daddy. Just shut up, I said to her. It's over. We'll never mention it again. Now tell me how you met Campbell. She grinned. She was a pitcher on the Florida State team. We met when we played in a tournament there. I questioned, love at first sight, huh? Campbell chuckled. It was for me, but she had a boyfriend, so we stayed just friends until I got a job and moved here. I said, what do you do? If that's okay with you. She said, I don't mind. She rolled her eyes and turned to face Talitha. I'm a software developer. She uttered, he's testing me. Will I pass the test? I had to chuckle. You're a beautiful woman, Campbell. You don't need me to tell you that. I thought I was being subtle, but I guess you got me. If I were your father, you wouldn't pass the test. You're gorgeous, but there's too much about you that is exposed. What the hell is that? Who asked you? I'm glad you're not my dad, Campbell remarked. Talitha interrupted, Campbell, you're the one who asked him, she laughed. I like the way she looks, Daddy. I lifted my hands in a gesture of giving up. I said, that's all that matters. The talk went fairly well after such a stormy beginning, and we parted ways amicably. The following evening, Tori dropped a bombshell on me while stopping by to hang out with her old man. I'd met Campbell, I told her. Tori, did you know about her? Did you know Talitha is bisexual? She let out a sigh. Yes, Daddy, I always knew. And before you start, if you tell me the secret and promise not to tell it to her, I won't snitch on you either. Okay, Yeah, I understand, love. How well do you know Campbell? Quite all right, she answered. Tally told me a lot about her in college. She was kind of nondescript. I know she had a steady girlfriend and got caught cheating. Talitha didn't like it very much, and they didn't socialize for a while. I exclaimed, wow, I had no idea. I don't think that's good, Dad. She's a grown woman, she replied. Let her live her life. I know that, but if I thought you were involved with some cheating boyfriend. I had a thought all of a sudden. Tori, you. She chuckled. No, Dad. Well, I could be a little nosy under the right circumstances, but if I'm looking for a life partner, it's going to be a guy. After we spoke for a while longer, she left. I told Jinta about my day when she came in. She looked a bit weird when I told her about meeting Campbell. Oh my God, I exclaimed. Don't tell me you knew too. She was starting to feel uneasy. Yes, Mark, I did know. Talitha told me she was going to meet with you today and tell you everything. Why am I the last to know important things about my daughter? I inquired. You're a man, she exclaimed while chuckling. Girls feel more comfortable talking to other women. Well, I don't know what to think about that, I replied. Do you know she had an old girlfriend and cheated on her? Tori told me. And that doesn't bother you, she asked in response. Mark, they're 25 years old. What were they when it happened? 19, 20. Jesus, just because she was young, cheating is okay? She appeared a little irritated. I didn't say that. Did you make mistakes when you were 20? Yes, plenty, I responded, but cheating wasn't among them. After a few days of some tense situations, I found myself under a lot of pressure. I confided in Tia that I was concerned for her, particularly with Campbell. You know how awful it was when your mom cheated, I said to her. She became agitated. Yeah, I know. I'm the one who told you, remember? And you think because Mom is the way she is, Campbell will be the same? Damn it, Dad, that pisses me off so much. She walked away without returning my calls or messages. When Hinta got home that evening, I got both barrels. She inquired, what did you say to Talitha? I said, why? Did she tell you? Yes, she told me. She came to our office and cried. Damn, Mark, why did you have to open your big mouth? Because I'm worried about my daughter, I uttered, furious that Hinta didn't appear to comprehend. She answered, you have a funny way of showing it. No, there's nothing funny about it. It's cruel and mean. Just because you were traumatized by what Tessa did, you have to be so worried about Campbell? She's a sweet girl, Mark. She's changed, and you should give her a chance and stop interfering. What do you think you're doing? For the first time since our relationship began, I became angry. You're meddling, and she's not even your daughter. She gave me a slap-like look when she saw me. Quietly, you're a jerk, she said. How can you say that to me? She's my daughter, ask her. I know you have scars, Mark, but taking them out on me or Talitha by saying that to me is just petty and mean. With a stiff and angry back, she strode off. For a further 30 minutes, I could hear her footsteps in the bedroom. She emerged with suitcases while I sat there steaming. I said, what are you doing? I'm returning to Aji, she declared. She could hardly speak, her eyes watering. When you get your head out of your ass, call me. She walked away, leaving me sitting there in shock, saying, I'm not staying here with you when you're in this condition. How in the hell? How could this have become so unbearable? Why was it that she couldn't see things my way? Why was Talitha unable to? I didn't do anything for the remainder of the day and had a restless night. My dreams were haunted by the memory of Talitha's wounded gaze. I awoke in the morning as though I were in a fog. Feeling too dejected to do anything more, I ate some cereal. The doorbell rang at 10. Not that I was expecting anyone. I turned to see that it was Campbell. I didn't want to see her at all, damn it. With a sigh, I pulled open the door. She swept out into the corridor, past me. "We should speak," she stated. "I want coffee, strong and black." I pretended to be indifferent. "Mark, either you give me coffee, or you and I are leaving right here," she replied. "I'm mad as hell at you, but I get you, man. So, do you want to throw up your hands, or do you want to give me coffee and talk to me?" I had to chuckle. This girl was fierce, crazy, and incredibly attractive in her torn jeans and tiny top. I said, "Coffee, then." "Please don't kick my ass, Campbell." She smiled. "I can do that, you know. I'm a damn good kickboxer." "Somehow that doesn't surprise me," I replied. "I've got some blue mountain beans from Jamaica. I haven't tried them yet. Would you like to try some? Do you like good coffee?" "Yes," she replied. "And I do. I wish I had a coffee grinder. You know, Mark, I've always wanted to own my own coffee shop, not like a franchise one." While I ground the beans and prepared our cups using the Rocket R58 portafilter, she sat behind the bar and spoke with me about her ideal coffee shop. We sipped our coffees as I sat at the bar across from her. She approved of it and said it was delicious. She put down her cup, rested her elbows on the bar, and covered her face with her palms. She was so beautiful, it was unbelievable. Her enormous brown eyes, which were so dark they were practically black, never left mine even though we were only 2 feet apart. "Mark, you're crazy," the woman exclaimed. I laughed. "Without a doubt," I replied. "But how specifically this time?" She said, "Talitha is so upset with you." "Me too, for that matter. The thing is, she doesn't understand you." "I do." "Understand?" I asked, unsure of the precise aspect of me that she found understandable. "I comprehend," she gave a nod. "Your wife, Talitha's mom, cheated on you." I said, "Talitha told you that?" "She did." "And did she tell you that she was the one who found out and how devastated she was?" "Yes, she also told me how devastated you were." "Okay, what are you trying to say, Campbell?" "You see your baby. She's with me, and I know what Tessa told you about me, what I did." "And what do you think?" "I suppose you think I'll cheat on her," she replied. "You think I'm going to break her heart, and that makes you feel bad about what your wife did to you?" She must have figured me out. I said, "And what are you going to do?" "I'm going to get to know you better and let you get to know me. I'm going to tell you about myself, about what it's like to be me." I told her, "Okay, you're off to a good start." She shot me one of her flashing smiles, her teeth dazzlingly white against her dark skin. "Yeah, I'm good. Mark, I know what I look like, you know. I was hit on by men at first, but then by women." Her face lit up a little, I can imagine. "You're a beautiful girl, Campbell." "Thank you. I don't know how much Talitha has told you about women's college athletics. There are a lot of female athletes out there, especially in softball. I think there were about 10 girls on my team who weren't lesbians." "Really?" "I didn't know that, but I believe you." "Well, imagine this. I was a sophomore. I hooked up with another girl. She was an athlete. We were together all through sophomore year. I didn't cheat on her, and as far as I know, she didn't cheat on me." I said, "What happened?" "Well, I was invited to a camp. It was very prestigious, Mark. Only elite players were invited. It was run by 2 softball legends. It was a huge opportunity, and I took it." "You played baseball in college," Talitha told me. "I did play. I was hardly as good at baseball as you were at softball." "I know. I was never as good as Talitha." She remarked, "Not many people are. But imagine, who was your favorite professional player?" "Probably Cal Ripken Jr., maybe Don Mattingly," I replied. "Okay, imagine the 2 of them invited you to a skills camp. How impressed would you be with them?" I said, "Very much," acknowledging that they were legends. Growing up, they were my heroes. That's precisely what occurred to me, though the storyline is a little off. I was 20 years old. Dex, these two gorgeous women have always been my heroes. They have taught and shown me a great deal of knowledge that has improved me as a player. I then understood that they were more than just looking at me as a player. See where this is going, do you? In my opinion, yes. She said, I know you're not attracted to those baseball players you idolize, but can you imagine if they were beautiful women? And to me, that's exactly what they were. I told her, that's where you're going to have to use your imagination. They dragged me to clubs, took me to fantastic restaurants, and showed me amazing music venues. They challenged me to the brink. Her large brown eyes gleamed with tears that started to fall down her cheeks. I realized how much it hurt for her to tell me about how much she was breaking my heart. I realized she was telling me this because she was in love with Todd. She opened up to me and displayed her vulnerability because she needed my trust, realizing how much my daughter and I meant to each other. I was the one causing this pain, so I had to stop. I went around and got the tissues out of the box on the counter, gave them to her, helped her up, and gave her a hug. She seemed to just bear it at first, stiff as a steel post. I drew her close to me and said, Campbell, I'm so sorry. Please, I don't need to hear anymore. I understand everything, okay? I'm sorry I made it necessary, and I know how brave you are and how much it hurt you to come here and tell me. Please forgive me. She sobbed uncontrollably as she settled into my arms. I simply gave her a hug and told her in a whisper that everything would work out and that I was sorry I didn't give her another chance. She eventually calmed down, so I carried her to the couch in the living room. We spent several hours conversing as she cuddled up against me. Dinner time arrived, and I made her something to eat. She supported me by cuddling up to me, and even with all of her physical differences, I felt as though one of my daughters was here. She was one of those cheerful, laughing drunks, and we went through 2 bottles of wine together. She spent the night, napped in Tia's room, and called Letha first thing in the morning to invite her to have breakfast at my house. We were standing side by side at the stove, making pancakes, talking nicely about nothing, and Campbell had one arm around me when Talitha came in. Talitha moved quickly through the kitchen and got in our way. Campbell, what are you doing here? Inquired the woman. What, like Dad, she came to enlighten your poor dumb father. I responded, Doll, I'm sorry for the way I acted. I understand why you love Campbell, and I know how much she loves you. Will you forgive me? She held on to me. I love you, Daddy, and I always will, she replied. It's easy for me to forgive you, Daddy. I need to apologize to you too. I thought you were just a jerk. Both of us looked at her. Well, I thought I was, and you kind of were. Campbell set my mind right, and Jeanta did too. I know you loved me and thought you cared about me, you just need to work on your social skills. So do I. I should have confided in you, Dad, a long time ago, and I wish I had done so, and returned your calls with Jeanta. I'm afraid you'll have a little more work to do. I know, I'm afraid I said some very rude things to her. I know, she told me. What? I told her that Talitha was my daughter, not hers, Campbell said, clucking a little. She didn't tell me, Campbell asked. I don't think T feels the same way Henta does. I think technically you were right, Talitha said, but you're terribly wrong. I'm closer to her than I ever was to my mother. I wish she was my mom, and you need to apologize to her. What? She responded. Campbell grinned. We all laughed, completed the pancakes, and enjoyed a wonderful morning. I hope you like the taste of crow, dude, because you're going to eat a whole murder. I didn't have time to waste because I had a lot to accomplish. I took a plane to Los Angeles 2 days later, rented a car, went to the flower shop, and bought every rose they had. I let myself in, arranged the flowers all over the house, and was kneeling in the hallway when Henta came in because she wasn't home. She started to cry, ran across the entryway in her heels, and hugged me after I managed to tell her I stuck my head out of my ass. I'm so sorry, Peach. Please forgive me. Her cheek pressed up against the top of my head, veiling me in her curly hair. She uttered, "I hate being angry with you. We need to communicate better as a group." I ate that crow. "I'm sorry too, Dex. I know you meant well, and I guess I felt like we were all kind of conspiring against you." After we returned to Austin, we went whitewater rafting in Colorado with all the girls. I made the decision to include Campbell in my family because that was my own. We were family, even though I had a fierce brown jungle cat as a new daughter. I proposed to Hinta that night while they were with us on Terra. After 3 years, I included them in the scheme, giving them something to do while we went out to dinner. H's hand went to her mouth just before dessert, and she started crying. I dropped to one knee near the table. I was slightly unbalanced, but I quickly moved forward. I slipped on the ring as she extended her hand. Still sobbing like a baby, she helped me to my feet and threw herself into my arms. "Peach, I was hoping this would make you happy," I stated to her. She nestled into my shoulder and giggled weakly, saying, "Not 'cause these tears of despair." "I'm content," she declared. "I cry when I'm really happy too. It was just a little curveball. I thought I hit it with a swing." Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So, subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.